Hello, and welcome to the Orthodontic Products Podcast. I'm your host, Allison Warner. What if you could reduce your clear aligner treatment times by 25% and use 40% fewer aligners per case? According to preliminary results from a recent independent retrospective study out of the University of Illinois Chicago, those numbers are very real. The study compared the OrthoFX FXClear aligner system head to head with Invisalign and found that the FXClear system not only required significantly fewer aligners and shorter treatment times, but also delivered highly predictable clinical outcomes, specifically when it comes to avoiding posterior open bites. In this episode, sponsored by OrthoFX, we're looking at the real world impact of that data with the orthodontist whose clinical cases actually fueled the study, Dr. Terry Sellke. Dr. Sellke brings over 50 years of experience spanning private practice and academia. In this episode, we discuss his transition to this new generation of clear aligner polymers and why the material science behind it has allowed him to stop building heavy overcorrections into his digital treatment plans. We also explore the practice management side of the equation. Dr. Silke breaks down how marrying highly predictable aligners with remote monitoring safely reduces in office visits and how that can effectively double your return on investment per patient. So, with that, here's our conversation. Dr. Silke, thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate it.
No problem. Happy to be here.
Great. Well, just to get started, can you tell me a little bit about your practice and just your career?
Okay. Well, my career, I'm a dinosaur in orthodontics, as they would say. My career began actually in orthodontics when I graduated from orthodontic school 1972. So it's been a while. And my career has been a combination of private practice and academic. I was co-director of clinics, University of Illinois, for 36 years. And I've been actively involved in research, University of Illinois, for years, still to this date. I lecture worldwide on the business of orthodontics. And, one of the things I learned in school is that they don't teach business. In dental school or in ortho school, I went out and got a master's degree in business so that I could understand how to run this business we call orthodontics. And from there, transitioned into lecturing on productivity, quality of care without yeah, and thus here we are. We're talking about some of the things that I think are so important to a well-run orthodontic practice.
Yeah. Okay. So we're going to specifically talk about clear aligners today. So, how do clear aligners currently fit into your treatment offerings? And what percentage of your caseload do they represent compared to traditional fixed appliances?
Well, in today in our world, the practice was probably 70% aligners, and the other 30% is fixed braces, whether it be metal or clear ceramic.
So we're going to talk about, your transition to the OrthoFX aligner system. So I'm kind of curious, what kind of clinical and operational factors, because you talked about your experience with, practice management lecturing and the business side lecturing, what operational factors led you to change aligner systems and integrate the OrthoFX system into your practice?
Okay. The answer is very simple. The OrthoFX is a totally different polymer than what was available in orthodontic world in when I began with them in 2019, 2020. There was no practice that had that kind of material. And I give the credit to Lock Fan, who is the genius behind the development of their polymer.
I understand that the recent UIC retrospective study was based on cases and data provided by your practice, though you weren't involved in this final analysis. So, what motivated you to submit your clinical data for this independent review?
Well, as I indicated, I'm still actively involved with different research projects in Illinois, and one of the things I offered to them as a study, and my office has been the basis for dozens of studies at Illinois, master's thesis, and so forth. My practice is an open book for anything that anybody wants to do research on, and it's been that way for 40 years.
Oh, okay.
So on the issue of aligners, I actually went to Illinois and said, what would be a great study? and we've got a database that's significant enough that the outcomes can be clinically significant is, I've got probably 5,000 patients I've treated with Invisaligns plastic, Smart Track material. And I now have got under my belt, probably 500 cases that have been treated with the OrthoFX plastic, which is FXClear.
Right.
And I am seeing a materially different outcome between the two of them in terms of quality, treatment time, et cetera. And it could be a good study for Illinois to do. I mean, that's kind of how it began.
Okay. So when the team completed their analysis of your cases, they reported a 25% reduction in treatment duration and a 40% decrease in aligner usage for the FX Clear compared to Invisalign. Were those independent findings a surprise, or were they consistent with what you were already sensing chairside?
Absolutely was what I knew to be true from my practice after
Okay.
treating hundreds of cases.
Okay. So the study indicated that the reduction in total appointments was primarily driven by fewer virtual monitoring and troubleshooting visits. So looking at back at how you managed specific patients in that data set, how did that drop in mid-course corrections impact your daily workflow?
Well, I guess the languaging that was used, that it was a drop in virtual visit and so forth, really doesn't, in my mind, I had nothing to do with the study other than providing the patients for the sample. So how the study was conducted, the outcome of the study was totally done, independently by Illinois.
Yeah.
But the long answer to your short question is this. I saw that there was a significant reduction in the number of refinements
Hmm.
with the OrthoFX material. The reason being that, we didn't get unseats like we did with SmartTrack. Significantly fewer cases being, redone or having to do another refinement because we've lost track of teeth, like upper lateral incisors and so forth.
Hmm.
It just wasn't happening with the OrthoFX plastic. Therefore, fewer refinements, therefore fewer visits, therefore finishing cases in far fewer aligners, and frankly, to what I knew in my heart to be a far superior clinical result as well.
Okay. So one of the points the researchers highlighted was that posterior open bites, which are a common challenge, and they noted that tighter posterior agreement in the FX Clear data set. So clinically, how did you experience the difference in posterior tracking while treating patients involved in this study?
Okay, good question. What I observed from the very beginning is having worked with Invisalign and SmartTrack material for years and having done so many cases, it was always a problem finishing details, trying to get good occlusion of posterior teeth. And I think part of the reason, and again, I'm giving you a long answer to a short
Oh,
question,
that's fine.
was my view was that with the SmartTrack material, and I think probably the software to some degree too, we had to build in so much overcorrection in order to get the teeth where we wanted them to be, that when we finally, let's say, reached the tip and the torque and everything else that we wanted on teeth, that invariably posterior teeth were out of occlusion, invariably. And so what then that led to is another refinement to kind of undo what we'd overcorrected, and more aligners and more work. And I think that clearly explains the difference in the number of months. It clearly explains the difference in the number of aligners to treat a case. We did not have to do that with the FX Clear material.
Okay. So you spoke about it a little bit there, but the authors suggested just the level of predictability that they found it with the digital setup allowed it to be more like a true blueprint. Knowing this conclusion was drawn directly from your clinical outcomes, does it change in any way how you approach digital treatment planning and how
For
it's
sure.
evolved? Okay.
Absolutely, for sure. We don't build the overcorrection into our digital treatment plan that we used to. We just don't do it. We don't need to do it to get to the end of the rainbow.
Okay. Okay. So the UIC analysis was limited to mild to moderate non-extraction cases that you provided. So based on your ongoing clinical use, how are you evaluating the system's performance to look at in more complex scenarios?
Okay, we like anything new, when you're trying something new in your practice, you start out with easy cases. Going back to the days when we first started with Smart Track, we used it on only easy cases because in those days, back in 2006, 7, 8, that's all you could use it on. That's all it would work on is easy cases. But to their credit, they improved their technology where I could do more complex cases.
Hmm.
Well, my fear was with the FXClear would be the same story used on easy cases. So, our first, let's say, 100 cases with FXClear were easier, okay, by choice, okay. And when we got confidence in the material and the results that we were getting, now we use the FXClear on any case, extraction cases, borderline surgical cases. Uh, we use it on all cases, and we're getting very nice results. And I'm happy to say the posterior occlusion, there is no comparison in the fit of the teeth at the end of treatment between the two products.
Yeah. And then, we talked about that. Your planning becomes a true blueprint for a case. Do you find that to also be the case with these more complex cases where you can trust
Yes,
that a digital treatment plan?
yes, absolutely.
Okay. Looking more broadly at the industry, how do you expect emerging advancements in aligner material science to impact clinical workflows and practice management in the coming years?
Well, I would like to hope that, with the emergence of the new polymers and, not only FX Clear is there, which is, what I'm absolutely in love with, but, to his credit, Lock Fan's come up with the next generation, which is called air aligners. And I have little experience in that, so I can't give any feedback on that, but if Lock Fan came up with it, I'm sure it works. But, right now with FX Clear, I can say that the profession needs to understand that there is a difference in the polymer.
Hmm.
And the polymer is the magic potent. It's what it gets the tooth from where it was to where it needs to go with all of the tip torque and angulation and everything else that you need. And the polymer is the secret and the key to everything. And I will tell you, with that with the polymer, what doctors have to learn, and I'm giving again a long answer to your short question. What
Okay.
doctors have to learn is to build into the treatment, and by the way, the treatment planning software with OrthoFX is better too. But they build into the treatment instead of building overcorrection, build little bit of overcorrection. Okay. And they're gonna find that they don't have to undo things because they didn't overdo it to begin with. And that's a learning experience. And for someone who's worked in aligners, it's hard to let go of that. It's
Mm,
hard to
okay.
believe that you don't have to do that, but you
Uh,
have to give it a chance, and I'm telling you, it's amazing how well it works.
yeah. What does given your focus on practice management, kind of the business side of orthodontics, what does it mean to have a system that, you know, you can trust the treatment plan and you're not having to take those extra steps? What does that mean overall to the business?
Great question. There there is a company called Gauge in the orthodontic industry in the United States. They represent like 1,800 really good orthodontic practices, and they have a metric called value per visit. Value per visit, put simply, would be you take the treatment feed and divide that by the number of in-office visits. And what you come up with very simply is value per visit, meaning how much did you generate per visit?
Mhm.
Value per visit Frankly, it's maybe a little too simplistic, but it's the best we could do in the orthodontic industry with all orthodontists practicing differently. We have to find a common denominator, and value per visit is what's the best that's out there.
Hmm.
With value per visit, using that as a business metric, if you could treat a patient in half as many visits, you have doubled your profit, your return on investment for that patient. Now, if you can do it consistently in every patient, the outcome is not only, let's say, you're making more profit per case, but you're able to treat more patients in fewer days because it's fewer in-office visits and all of those things. But the key is it's not just making more money per case. Importantly, it's a better result in less time. And remote monitoring is a big factor in that whole thing too,
Yeah.
because I can remotely monitor the progress. When I'm not seeing unseats,
Hmm.
I just simply tell the patient, you don't need to come in. In fact, our lines in our office now, picture an orthodontic practice. Typically, you finish what you're going to do today, and you
Hmm.
say to the patient, okay, we'll see you in 6 weeks for ABCD. Okay. In other words, the next appointment is made today.
Hmm.
In my office, we don't do it that way.
Okay.
In my office, we say, we'll let you know when you need to come in next time.
Mm.
As long as you're doing your scans and I can remotely monitor your progress, you might go 20 weeks before I see you, as
Okay.
compared to the mindset of I got to see you in 4 weeks or six
Right.
weeks or whatever it might be. That's huge. That's
Yeah.
huge.
Yeah. So the material science, having a product, an aligner that, is tracking correctly, and then that remote monitoring aspect completely changes the way you're operating as a business.
Totally. Totally, totally, totally. And everyone wins.
Hmm.
Everyone wins. The doctor makes more money per case while producing a better result, but the patient wins too. Patients have busy lives. A lot of orthodontists have this mindset of my patients love to come in. We have fun when they come in. No question they have fun, but they got better things to do. Mom doesn't want to take off work to bring them to your office for what is an appointment that says, yep, that
Yeah.
everything looks okay.
Yeah.
Why not do that remotely?
Yeah.
So it's that combination that is a paradigm shift in orthodontics. And it in my mind is the most exciting thing that's occurred in my 50-year career.
Hmm. What would you say to orthodontists who, you have been in this field for over 50 years? What would you say to orthodontists who, because I talk to still a lot of doctors who are wary of remote monitoring, or don't see the value in it. You've talked about the value there, but what would you say to those who, you know, are mid-career at this point who are hesitating a little bit about making that change to employ this and then to marry it with the newer aligner systems?
I would say to them, maybe a little bit more tactfully than this, you know, the future is there. This is the future. You can choose to join it or be among the dinosaurs. You know, you will become extinct because this is what consumers want. And in a world where third parties are controlling what we can charge,
Mm,
and so if our fees can't go up with the cost of inflation and yet everything else is staff costs, material costs are going up,
yeah,
that reduces doctor your take home.
right.
And any business can't survive that way. So we need to realize we have a business and our job is to increase productivity. That's what any business on the planet has to do to survive. And this is the answer to increasing productivity and at the same time improving quality.
Yeah. Well, we're going to leave it there. Thank you, Dr. Silky, so much. I really appreciate you tying the clinical and the practice managed side together. Thank you.
No problem. Happy to work with you. Talk to you soon again. Hopefully,
Definitely.
Allison. All
Definitely.
righty.
Okay. As always, thank you for joining us. Be sure to subscribe to the Orthodontic Products Podcast to keep up with the latest episodes. And be sure to check out orthodonticproductsonline.com to keep up with the latest industry news. Until next time, take care.